We are often given the impression today that the Constitution mentions the separation of church and state, by which they really mean a separation of God and government. We cannot allow any reference to God in the public arena, supposedly. But of course, nowhere does the Constitution mention the separation of church and state. Indeed, when you study the facts of American history, these theories don't hold up. Did the founders intend God to be banished from the public arena? If they did, then George Washington and the presidents since him violate that principle during their time of swearing in on the Holy Bible and saying, "So help me God." In reality, the founders never intended God to be banished from the public square.
In following his strongly held tradition from the Anglican and Virginian context from which he came, he wants to take that oath with the Bible. And that same Bible, I believe, was used when George W. Bush was inaugurated as president. And as he takes the oath of office, he adds words that are not in the Constitution, but were spoken by him numerous times, even when he began his public life as a surveyor. In Virginia, when you took an oath, you always concluded it with the words, "So help me God." And so Washington starts a tradition that has been carried on since that time, not in the Constitution, but when the oath of office is taken, it is said, "So help me God." And it's fascinating that those that witness him taking his inaugural oath, they saw that he followed another Anglican custom, and that is he bent over and he kissed the Bible. When an Anglican or let's say an early Episcopalian took an oath, the reason he kissed the Bible was saying, "I've made a promise with my lips, and I know I can only keep this promise if they are committed to the Word of God." And he believed that he would have to give an account for those words.
Next, he delivered his first inaugural address, in which he mentioned how grateful we should be that we had become a nation at all.
It would be peculiarly improper to omit, in this first official act, my fervent supplications to that Almighty Being who rules over the universe. No people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand which conducts the affairs of men more than the people of the United States. Every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of providential agency. George Washington.
After the inaugural address, Washington and the leadership of the new country and their wives attended a 2-hour prayer and communion service at St. Paul's Chapel, a building that still stands in New York, where George Washington had his own pew.
He walked a few blocks with several others to a little now Episcopal chapel, and that's where they had a 2-hour worship service, thanking God for the beginning of a new form of government, a newly elected president.
Washington, his cabinet, the members of both houses of Congress, and their wives participated in a 2-hour Christian worship service, which culminated in Holy Communion. George Washington received the Lord's Supper in that service.
And then we have the record of a lady named Mrs. Alexander Hamilton, who recorded with her family how on that particular day she had the joy of kneeling and taking communion with the newly elected President of the United States. Here on the most auspicious day of his entire life, he goes from the public celebration to a worship service, and he communes, taking the Lord's Supper.
Did the founders intend for God to be banished from the public arena, as some atheist groups claim today? I once wrote an article that highlighted references to God and the Bible in the inaugural addresses of all the U.S. presidents, every one of them. For example, in his first inaugural address, President Lincoln stated, quote, "Intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and a firm reliance on Him, who has never yet forsaken this favored land, are still competent to adjust in the best way all our present difficulty," end quote. His second inaugural address is a virtual sermon with 3 direct quotes from the Scriptures. Presidents Eisenhower and George H.W. Bush actually opened their inaugural addresses in prayer. No wonder our national motto is, to this day, "In God We Trust." For Providence Forum, I'm Jerry Newcomb.